it helps quite a bit, I think, to surround yourself with people that do it well and do it at a high level.
I would just fight it and fight it and fight it. I'd be wrong like 5, 10 times in a day and just like take all these cuts.
Everyone's like, I won't do that. And then there are moments where you will do that and you're like, how does that feel? And you have to feel that disappointment. And then you're like, how have I got into this position?
My general advice to people when they're going through serious drawdowns is,
hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Trading Takes, presented to you by Investors Underground, the show where we break down trading. I'm your host, Sam, and we've got another awesome episode coming at you. But first, I just want a huge shout out to David Hanlon. David was a guest on our last episode of Trading Takes. Since recording that and recording this one, he's just crossed the $6 million mark. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out that episode after watching tonight. But as for tonight we've got Brice Foose, a prop trader who has provided an incredible Traders for Cause presentation only last year. He discussed the long road to success. He's a testament to perseverance and determination, and now is an absolutely incredible trader. So let's get into the show. And welcome back, Nick, to the show. How you doing, Nick?
doing great. How you doing, Sam?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. And you enjoying the markets at the moment? You having fun?
It's been the best month of my year, so yeah,
Oh,
it's been
wow.
great.
Congratulations. And well deserved. And I'm really pleased to you. I know you posted a picture recently of lots of wires, so I love to see that.
Yep. Yeah. That's definitely a topic I want to cover today, but yeah, I posted it because I really want to drive home the importance, especially for novice traders. When you're doing well on the market, I think a big mistake that I made early on in my career was, I have to keep my profits in my account. I need to keep growing, like I gotta get to 1 million, whatever it is, like whatever goals you set for yourself. Um, and in the beginning, I just kept falling into the same traps, like I'd grow my account tremendously, and then one bad trade would wreck me, and I'd be in a place where it happened, I think, just once in my career so far, but where I hadn't been able to refund my account. And it was just such like a wake up call for me because, you need 25K at the minimum to even be considered for trading in the US. And, realistically, you need a lot more than that to actually trade comfortably. And I think that's a mistake that I made a lot early on in my career, was just constantly, doing well in markets, growing my account, and just trying to size up right away, But I've learned over the years that that's not the right way to do it. At least for me, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for me, I needed to treat it more like a business than, just me trading to make money, right? So it's like, if you make money on a day, let's say you make $5,000 in a day, that's incredible. Most people don't make 5K in a day. And what I started changing about what I do is, if I make 5K in a day, I withdraw 2.5 immediately. Like, it's not even a question. I'll withdraw 50%. So luckily I've been able to, have a really good month this month. And I've been able to withdraw almost every single day.
Oh, nice. That is, that's great. And obviously what you just touched on there as well, refreshing honesty, which is what tonight is 100% about. And joining us as well, we've got Brice and we've got Eddie. How are you both doing?
Good. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good. I'm great. Thanks. Eddie, you good?
Oh, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you both. So, just by way of introduction, Brice, kick us off. Brice, you're the inspo for tonight. It was your presentation at Traders for a Cause last year that's inspired tonight's conversation. So, just by way of introduction, just kick off. Just let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I started trading in 2011. I was in pharmacy school, and then kind of gradually got more and more active each year. Joined 7 Points in 2019, and been trading for them ever since. Yeah.
Well, you ready?
Yeah, I started trading. Just started dabbling in like 2018, 2019, and then went, I guess, full time kind of at the end of that year. And then found some success in the COVID market, and then yeah, just kind of used that to get everything started, and then just been grinding ever since.
Nice. And it looks like you're in a pretty office somewhere.
Yeah, and in Arizona right now.
Ah, nice. Okay. So I thought you were based in. You're not in Puerto Rico anymore. Are you back? Are you just in
Yeah,
between?
no, no, that's where I spend most of my time. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. So tonight, I mean, there's tons we want to chat about tonight, but I think like a lot of tonight we want to talk about understanding the journey. I think that was inspired by, obviously, Brice, you touched on your timeline and trading school course. And I want to try and I mean, it's going to be harder for you, Brice, because it sounds like you've been trading the longest here. I want to really go back to those first few months, maybe up to 6 months, think about that stage where you know nothing. And I think like I want to kick off with story because like I remember that time when I first started trading, like I already put the picture of the Ferrari on the wall. And I remember there were days where like I just got really lucky and I was just buying breakout, everything worked. And I'm there screenshotting my P&L. I'm sending it to my mum and like I'm trying to justify to my mum that I don't need to work anymore. I'm just going to be this trader who sits in his joggers all day. And I think it quickly, I wouldn't say it came crashing down, but like it very quickly reality set in. And perhaps the expectations versus reality were very different to what I expected. Brice, can you remember back that far? I think you said it like 2011 that you kicked it off.
Yeah, I mean, so at that point, I just kind of started dabbling into swing trading. So basically, buy a stock, hold it for a couple months. Ideally get a move and sell into it. Um, and then it was basically, I mean, I graduated in 2013, and then in 2014, I started kind of venturing out to other strategies, all kinds of different stuff. And then kind of moved on from there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of trial and error when you first start and trying to figure out what works and what resonates with you, and then basically just gaining experience. But yeah, those are it takes a long time to really develop to get to profitability, I think.
You touched on obviously you started swing trading. Did you have much success to start with? And would you attribute any success or whatever to skill, or do you think it was just pretty rando and good luck?
Yeah, so when I started, I mean, I found a company that was working on inhalable insulin, and in pharmacy school, I was thinking, well, people probably hate needles, so this would be a great idea. So that was the first stock I bought, and thought, well, I bought it at 3, it's probably going to go to 50, make X amount, and then I'll just keep rolling it. In 2012, I basically, stayed with the same swing strategy and was pretty much break even. In 2013, I actually hit a couple good runs and was able to double a small account. And at the end of the year, I was like, well, if I can continue to double it, it could grow pretty good. And then in 2014, I started to do other strategies and, win some, lose some, and then I had to get back to the drawing board. But yeah, I'd say, 2013 was probably, a little bit of beginner's luck maybe, but I only had pretty much one strategy and I was able to hit a couple that worked really well. And that kind of strategy kind of comes and goes with basically hotter markets. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I throw that over to you, Eddie. Like your expectations, perhaps when you first started back, 2018, 2019, how have they played out versus that reality, that first couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't really know what I expected at first. I think I was kind of like, I'll just see what happens. Because I was still like in college at the time, so it's not like I was like had a ton of pressure on myself or anything. But I definitely think over time it definitely has changed. And I think probably the best mindset is not to have high expectations, because you're kind of just setting yourself up for disappointment either way. I mean, I guess if you hit the goals, then it's like, now what? And then if you don't, then you feel bad, even if things went well. But I'll definitely say it took way or I guess, you should be prepared for it to take way longer than you initially think, because everyone thinks that they're going to be the one to figure it out in the first year or two or whatever. And the reality is it just takes a lot more time than that. And you just need a ton of reps. So I think that's kind of the main thing that I noticed. And that, like, if I were to tell myself when I was starting, like, it's, you can't rush the process, and it's going to take way more time than you think. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I don't have a Ferrari, so my expectations versus reality are very different. And I do think those reps are important. But I think the other thing with trading as well is like, obviously it's naturally like the people that are going to gravitate to trading are actually typically those that are going to be successful elsewhere, the ones that have got obviously extra cash or whatever it is. So that by nature is going to be very competitive. And I think like we all probably, I remember I came into it thinking, I performed well in other areas of my life. I thought actually it was going to translate and be quite easy. But what I've found is actually it's been a constant journey of having to better myself, every single day. And I like we said about perhaps not having those goals, because I think actually like quite a simple goal, and I got this from Lance, is just 1% better every day, just be a little bit better tomorrow than today. And actually your step towards those goals. Nick, can you remember what it was like? How are your did you go straight from the army to trading?
I did. I got out of the military. I was in college, actually for medicine, and I realized very quickly this is just not for me. I took a couple finance classes, and I'm like, yeah, way more interested in that. So I started off, working at a wealth management. I was working at Merrill Lynch as a wealth manager, but I was always much more, I guess, fascinated by markets as opposed to advising people on, different bullshit. So I opened up a brokerage account and did some research, and I got lucky. I invested in ADT. I believe it was the first stock that I ever bought. And I didn't really understand like sizing and positioning, so I put like a decent amount of money in it, and it ended up getting bought out like a week later. And that was my introduction to markets, right? So like I was just flying high from like almost day one. And that pretty much got me hooked. So I knew that I needed, a pod, so to speak. So, or a mentor, some sort of a trading room. I joined Tim Sykes, and I learned a lot there, but the chat room ultimately wasn't for me. And that's when I joined Investors Underground, I believe in like 2015 or 16.
Oh, quite a while ago then.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but yeah, I think finding success really early hurt me actually in the long run, because
Yeah.
there was so much I needed to learn and so many mistakes that I needed to make, that I think, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree, because like when I first started, I just decided I was buying everything, and then everything went up.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking I've got like a really good handle on this. And that like leads me to like my next point, because like that you then shift into like the next stage of, you think about the early stages, you think you're into that next stage when I think all of a sudden like you're so aware of there's so much you don't know about trading. And that's then that overwhelming stage where it's like, oh shit, I actually know nothing.
Right.
Did you
Yeah, I mean,
transition
it's
to
a
that?
it's a constant learning process, right? I mean, like, I think one thing that's so unique about what we do is that every day is different. Every day is different. Every day is an opportunity, right? So it's like, as long as you have chips in a chair, you're in the game. But you have to do everything you can to keep your chips, right? So it's like, that famous adage is like, rule number one, don't lose money. Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. And you know, that's something that takes experience. Like, you need to lose before you can learn that lesson. And yeah, you can have that drilled into your head from other people. You could watch YouTube videos, but it doesn't ultimately really sink in until you experience it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like most things in life.
Yeah, well, absolutely. No, well said. And Brice, like you touched on your early stages, you transitioned from well, you've had your style, what you thought, and then you started to figure it out. What was that process like where you were perhaps expanding your playbook and looking for ultimately a way that you could, trade and be consistently profitable?
Yeah, just a lot of screen time, and then reviewing and trying to reverse engineer different ways I could do things to get better. And which is a never ending process. I mean, I still, I review every night, and looking for different ways I can do things, and looking for different patterns that continue to kind of play out, or new ones that pop up, to kind of just build that database in my head to really get better.
Yeah. Do you think in that time are there any moments that really stand out of like aha moments? Oh, this began to click when I started doing this. Like for example, like in the last podcast, the last show we spoke about reviewing being really important. I didn't really know what a review was or consisted of back then. Like how quickly did you get, were you afraid with reviewing and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't in my early years at all. I mean, I didn't really know about reviewing. So it was basically, kind of when I joined a prop firm, to where I was pretty much introduced to reviewing, I guess, which, you'd think you'd figured out before then. But that's when I pretty much started, and, look at my executions and things like that at night. But I think that's really the best way to get better, in terms of, reviewing your mistakes, what you did right, what you did wrong, and then going back through and looking for reasons why, why things worked so well, or why things, was there a variable I missed in terms of why a certain trade didn't work, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, like through this process, you're gaining traction. You are progressing 1% or whatever it is every day. What was that process actually like? And how did it feel? Because obviously, like I'm sure you joined a prop firm, and you must have been surrounded by guys who were like some of the best traders in the world. Like, what was that process like for you, trying to like catch up and get to that level?
It's a grind. Trading's it's a grind. There's no doubt about it. But I think if you're surrounded, whether it's prop firm or just other people that you know of, if you have a pod or people you talk to, but if you're surrounded by people that are doing it and doing it at a high level, I think that you put yourself in a better you have a better chance to succeed. Because you can see people that are doing it, and then think, well, why can't I do it, right? So but it helps quite a bit, I think, to surround yourself with people that do it well and do it at a high level.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. And absolutely. And Eddie, that figuring it out stage for you, what was that like? Were you transitioning through different types of setups, or did you come on to what you want, that style of trading quite quickly? How was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough. I mean, I guess first of all, the COVID market wasn't normal. Like you can make money in almost any strategy, right? So after that, it was like you kind of had to relearn how to actually trade. And so that was a whole like process in itself. But I think like building an actual playbook probably was like year 3 until I was, comfortable with my setups. And I mean, I still didn't even know like, how to gauge like, okay, this is an A versus B versus C. Like, I mean, obviously you can tell A versus C, but like sometimes you might look at like 2 variables or 3 variables, and now I'm looking at like 10, right? So it's just gotten way more in depth. And I mean, I think it's hard when you're in like the early stages, because you don't have enough reps to know like what your best setups are.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to, you're basically trading everything the same size, which I don't think is the optimal way to trade either. So it's just like I'd say the most important thing is just building the playbook, um, and that takes pretty good amount of time, couple years at least.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that sums up this phase of like someone's development probably mostly, is that it's about like really trying to define who you are, I think, as a trader, and trying to work on actually the nuances to this is the setup. Why isn't this a setup? I remember in the early days, like I just traded everything the same. Like if it was gapping, I trade it. I trade everything the same. And then it was a case of actually some of these are working better than others. What the nuances? And then I started like, okay, go back to daily, go back to other things, right? Nick, what was it like for you, that sort of gaining traction stage? I mean, you've touched on joining, obviously, like having that mentorship at IU. Obviously, that's going to help. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I went through a series of adaptations like everybody else, but,
Yeah.
I probably 10x that. But, in the beginning, I started off as more of a contrarian, short bias trader. And I found myself doing really well. I started trading full time when small caps were really hot, and there was a play almost every day. Um, and then you can hit like 9 out of 10 of those, but it's the 10th one that can do something nuts. And I had like a 90% win rate in like my first couple of years, and I thought like, oh, this is easy. But it was always just that one trade that sent me back several months. So that's when I really started getting into journaling and back testing, and really, studying and delving into what am I good at? What am I bad at? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Like, and it's all clear, right? Because I've been documenting the entire thing. So I can, let's say I trade for a month, 3 months. I can go back, look at my notes, look at my trades, look at what I did right, look at what I did wrong. And immediately I'm just like, oh, okay, that's my strength. Oh, and that's my weakness.
Yeah.
So, I just want to highlight the importance of reviewing your trades and back testing, and studying, right? Like this is an industry where if you don't put in the work, I mean, eventually it's going to catch up to you because the markets are always changing and adapting, and if you don't adapt with them, you're gonna die. So, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I think one of the most important ones. So, I started staying away from names like, just through a couple months of back testing, I realized that I shouldn't be trading any China names. I shouldn't be trading anything foreign, really. Like, I was having the most success trading what I was familiar with. And I think that's something that has definitely stuck with me till today. I still only trade what I'm familiar with. And I think for a lot of novice traders, they feel like, if a ticker's moving, they have to trade it or they have to trade every day to make money. And I think, throughout your career, you're going to learn through hard lessons or hopefully not, but that you don't have to trade everything that's moving. And you don't have to trade every day, right? Like wait for your setups to come to you. Be patient. And I think that's like the biggest downfall for a lot of people is, they have this, either they're trading from a bad place where they feel like they need to make money, which I think you should never do, because it's very easy to go on tilt. If, you're trading to make money and then you're not making money, you just become so emotional about that it affects you, and you might not realize it, but you'll start revenge trading, you'll start over trading. You need to stay super disciplined and realize when it's your market and when it's not, when to size up, when to size down. And, that's something that just comes from experience. Like you're going to have to go through the ups and downs to get to that point. I think very few people have just gotten there on their own without experiencing any sort of drawdown or blow up or whatever it may be. I do think that, if you haven't experienced it, you're probably due for one. So I do think that the best traders are ones that have gone through all that shit pretty early and have been able to refine their strategy and cut out, their weaknesses And yeah, that's super important. I think for me, it's always been familiarity. So, as opposed to just trading every momentum name that was up 100% on the morning, I'd rather now trade, like, completely ignore that. Take that off my screen. Let everybody else figure it out. I'm much more comfortable trading a name like Palantir.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's so many points to really stress that. I think one is like, I remember thinking perhaps in the early days that I could learn from other people's mistakes, but I think like unless you like really feel it, like you have to feel what it's like to be like something simple, like everyone took like the cliche, like don't act to lose it. Everyone's like, I won't do that. And then there are moments where you will do that, and you're like, how does that feel? And you have to feel that disappointment. And then you're like, how have I got into this position? But unless you feel it, it's so like, I don't know, it's just there's something so weird in the way that you can like learn so like in other areas. I think you can learn so much from other people. And don't get me wrong, I mean training you can absolutely learn from other people, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that you need to feel and have that experience and have those reps out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing it the first time thinking, and then like you start writing rules, and I think that's been quite fundamental to my development in the early days. I don't know, Brice, is that something that you typically have done? Like, are you developing like some sort of rule structure or some sort of system in place?
Yeah, definitely. Rules are usually implemented after something bad happened. So
yeah,
that's the reality. You're not making rules because it worked great, right? Because you're making rules to protect yourself for the most part. Yeah, so definitely. I mean, I don't have it written out or anything, but just in my head. And then they continue to change as certain things happen, and then I realize, well, that's probably not something I should be doing, or something I should be involved in. So yeah, definitely a lot of rules for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. That's so true. You don't write rules on a sunny day. You don't write the rules when you've been like, I don't know, like just really touched on it. Like you're adding to a loser and it works. That's not the day you write rules. The day you write rules when it goes against you.
I guess the other part about just being experienced is when to follow them, and when you're allowed to break them. But that can be kind of a slippery slope as well. But yeah, I mean, I think every trader that does really well has rules for sure, no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, like you're joining a prop firm, like probably around this stage where you're figuring things out, or continuing to figure things out. Were you already treating trading like a job, or is that something that you picked up at the firm? And obviously, like how important is that process of treating it professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I was had quite a bit of passion for it way before I joined, but I guess just trading prop just made it more professional overall. So it was kind of better for me in terms of treating it more as being a professional, I guess, and as a job. Just having more of a solid routine, and following that kind of every day. But yeah, I think it's necessary to do well to have a solid routine and definitely treat it like a job and be professional.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if not, there's a lot of people out there that are, and they're going to take your money.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that will be at 4 o'clock in the morning and they won't stop trading until the market's closed. Like that's
right. And they've been doing that for years and years and years. They have so much experience or reps that like you can't really compete with them. If you're taking a lot of time off and not putting in the work that's required.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of that goes back to that, like the point you made about reviewing, like, and I mean, I don't think reviewing is, we touched on it last, it's not particularly time consuming, but that's like one of the things that like the first thing you could do that people want to do after a shitty day or whatever is get off desk. And actually, that's the time where actually those extra reps probably be even more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, like I don't usually do it like right after close, but I mean a lot of times I'll go for a walk and I'll kind of just mentally think about it in my head. So I feel like part of reviewing doesn't have to be sitting at the screens. It can just be even just sitting away, just thinking about different trades kind of in your head. I think that can be, part of a good review process in terms of just going through it in your head and thinking, what went well, what I need to do better, and kind of going through it like that.
So what are you going for a walk for? You could just sit on that Peloton and have a think. You could have a think doing that.
Sunshine.
Sunshine, yeah, get your vitamin D. Yeah.
Fresh air.
Yeah. And then just throwing the same question to you, like through that formation of those years, like how important did A, treating it professionally become, and then B, that sort of evolution and development of some sort of rules or system?
Yeah, I think I think on the treating it professionally, I think for me it was, I guess, more of an obsession. I was always obsessed with it, like right when I got involved, I was just like, I want to figure out everything I can about this. To the point where it's like you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you look at? What's running, right? And then so I guess that kind of translated into treating it like a job. But I don't know, it's more of like a game. I think to me doesn't really feel like work. So that's always kind of been my mindset there. And then for rules, I mean, yeah, definitely a lot of pain in the first like couple I'd say first year or two that was like made me implement certain rules. I would oftentimes just like go on a good streak and then one day give back a bunch of gains, and it's always because of one ticker you might be wrong. Like I would just fight it and fight it and fight it. I'd be wrong like 5 10 times in a day and just like take all these cuts. So then I would implement like a 2-strike rule or 3-strike rule where it's like, hey, if you're wrong 3 times, that's it.
Yeah.
And then like Brice said earlier, though, now it's like when to break it. So it might be the 3rd cut, but you're gonna give it another shot now. But I think it's not only having the rules, but the discipline to actually follow the rules, right? Because anyone can make a set of rules. It's another thing to actually follow through with them. And like I had issues with that, so I just started using hard stops. And honestly, if I didn't start that, I don't think I'd be trading anymore because I just get stubborn. But I think a lot of people think that they're too good for hard stops, or like, oh, I'm gonna get stop hunted or whatever. And I just think that when you're new, you gotta just do it, no matter what, because I mean, it's just stuff happens so fast. It's easy to just be like a deer in headlights and just I'll just see what happens. So I think that kind of saved me. And then I mean, I would write out my rules back in the day, just to have it like hardwired into my brain, just so I always followed them.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the same for me. Like I am a huge advocate of hard stops and like broken max losses or whatever. And like a lot of it for me is like I always like think I'm gonna do the right thing, but I've just been there too many times where I've had the opportunity to make the right decision. And if you don't make it in that like split second, all of a sudden I think you're facing like another scenario that you hadn't like mentally prepared for. Like all of a sudden, if it skips through your stop by 20, 30 cents or $1 or whatever it is, all of a sudden you're facing a scenario that you just haven't prepared for. Where like even if I get slippage or whatever, I'm like, well, at least I'm out, mentally reset, and I can always reattack. So that was a huge one for me. I just remember so many times I'm like, yeah, I will mentally stop out when it crosses this point here, and then it's crossed that point like $3-4 ago, and I'm like, shit, maybe I do need some hard stop. And I still do it now. I haven't changed that. And that was one of those aha moments that really changed my trading. Was first of all was getting sizing right as well. Like thinking of, I think always thinking of, for me anyway, like thinking of where am I wrong? That was always my starting point of a trade, is first of all, where am I wrong? And then sizing versus that level. And like Brian Lee was massively influential there, like in terms of how to scale into that position, take a starter, and when to scale, and then always having that stop in mind. And I think that was probably one of the things I look back on, and I'm like, if I didn't do that, as well, I'm with you there, Eddie. I don't think I'd have blown it.
Yeah. Yeah, because the hardest part is like the when you don't stop out, right? The farther it gets from your where you should have stopped out, you know, the more stubborn you want to get, and the least you want to take it off. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, all it takes is one time in a black swan, right? So I don't know. It's you gotta have those hard stops in.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I think there's a lot, like most of our viewers will probably have experienced this, and I do think it's a case of like you've got to find if there's a problem, you've got to find a solution. And I don't love the idea of using RSOP. I don't actually. It's not like I want to. I don't want to because I actually think I'd rather let it test the level and then actually, have that, mental capacity to make the correct decision. But I also know that there's a problem here potentially for me, and I need a solution. So I'm like, I got to take it. Unfortunately, it always sucks when you get that top hat. They get a little green top hat right at the top of the cannon. You're like, you bastards.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh yeah, so frustrating. Usually it's such a good entry signal, funnily enough, as well. And Nick, just wanted to touch on that. You touched on like this phase here. Like, how important is it to like be thinking about developing a skill versus making money?
Yeah, I talk about this all the time, and for me, I think the most important thing that you can do is become as familiar as you possibly can with what you're trading. Bruce Lee has that famous quote, I fear not the man that has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but one kick 10,000 times. Right? And what he's essentially saying is if you specialize in something, if you master something, just one thing, you can become a professional at it. And for me, that's everything, because in the beginning of my career, I was trading randomly, right? Like there were names that were moving, they'd be up 200% on the day. I'd be like, okay, I gotta hit this short, right? And I'd make money on it, but at the end of the day, like I had no idea like what the company did or why it was running. I just knew that it was up a lot, and then I would look at technical levels and make my decisions off that. But I realized that you're not going to be too consistent with that type of strategy. It can work, you can make money, but again, like you're going to fall into a trap eventually. So for me, I think specialization and familiarity are way more important than, diversification and, trying to master a bunch of different strategies. I think that comes with experience. Like you will master strategies the more time you spend in front of your computer, the more time you watch level 2 and the tape and things like that, how they move with the market, like you'll gain that familiarity. But I would say specialize in I would I would start by saying this. Like I think that most people who trade, not everybody, but they have a skill. There's something that they're good at. Otherwise they just wouldn't do it. They'd give up after a month and whatever it is. But I think the people that stick with it, there's a reason they're sticking with it, and it's probably because they found success in some area, and then there's other areas, obviously, where they haven't, and that's where they need to work on. But I think if you just focus on that success, and, it typically comes from one setup or maybe two setups. It's not a whole tool belt when you're first starting. So I think, just try to master a couple setups. Um, don't go too crazy with it. Don't overload yourself with it. Don't try to trade everything, and just stick to one setup. Try it for a month, see how you do. And if the setup's not there, you don't trade. Like you don't have to trade every day, and you don't have to trade every ticker, but you should be trading your setups that you're familiar with. So yeah, master one and work from there.
It's funny you mentioned that. So, I think we put that. I think like I'll come back to that because I think we pretty much concluded like that figuring it out. I call it like the figuring it out stage where like you go through pain and you make rules. You realize the risk management is really important. You realize that finding your setup is really important. Then I think you move on. Then obviously you progress. Like it's like graduating. You graduate. All of a sudden like now you're moving to the next stage where you're suddenly full of confidence. You've got some conviction in your setups. You're consistently profitable. You can turn up pretty much, day in, day out and make some money. But like I think like touching on that, like not taking trades. I think that inaction is actually really hard, where like I think a ton of people go wrong, because like obviously you go on Twitter and we're surrounded by people that are very active, and it's like, yeah, they're active because they're familiar with everything, but like inaction is one of the hardest things I think traders, we're all degenerates really. Well, most, some of us are.
Yeah, 100%. And I hate to keep like quoting people, but Kobe Bryant has another great quote where it's like, where does your insane level of confidence come from? And he responded by, just knowing that I did everything possible
Yeah.
to prepare.
Yeah.
And that's key. Preparation is everything. And you can be wrong, on a name that you're super familiar with, you think is a great setup, and that's okay, because 9 out of 10 times you'll probably be right. So then that comes down to risk management, which is a whole other topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brice, we're at that clicking and growing stage. We have progressed. We're always going to be lifelong learners. I think that's just like part of the job description, part of our nature. We're starting to get quite confident, but then there's always like the dreaded drawdown or setback of some description. I think maybe you haven't experienced any, but if you have, like, how have you handled those through the years?
Yeah, drawdowns are they're tough, right? I think they're tough for everybody, regardless of what level you're at, or how high of a level you've achieved. I think it gets somewhat better over time as you continue to come back from every drawdown. So it's like, I've done it before, I'll do it again. So and then it just kind of in the mindset is just I'll make it back. It's basically just a matter of time. So kind of just stick with the process and kind of look for things I've been doing wrong to cause this drawdown. Look to make some adjustments. Maybe trade a little bit smaller. Maybe switch up the time frame if I'm getting hurt early. Maybe smaller size, or maybe less risk early. And then when I feel good, I can add in a little bit later. So things like that. But yeah, overall drawdowns are tough. You can't really sugarcoat that. They're
No, you can't. I definitely, I think that's a key point, that like, if drawing is one of those things, again, like going back to that whole you need to experience it thing, I think like it's really important to experience it, and the more you experience it and get out of it, the better equipped you feel, and that the less it pulls you down. But like, is that fair to say, like, the longer obviously you're with your prop firm, they knew you were established, when you're like, they knew you're consistently profitable, like, did it just slowly become that little bit easier and perhaps like more of a dog's back eventually?
No,
no, feel free to say no.
Somewhat, but I feel like sometimes it's still tough. It's no matter how long you've done it for, what you've done. I think there's certain situations that kind of, especially if you're in a slump or just not doing as well as you like, or, continue to make same mistakes, things like that. Get kind of frustrated. If the environment kind of shifts a little bit and things aren't working, it can be tough. So, but it comes with experience, and more times kind of going through it. But I think kind of diving deep into what's causing the drawdown, and then kind of look to make adjustments, and then slowly kind of, well, I wouldn't necessarily say slowly. Some traders, they may take longer than others, and then some may find a setup that, boom, you're out of the drawdown right away. Because it's like, I don't know, one thing I think about is like, the market doesn't care where your equity curve is at, right? There may be, you may be in a drawdown, but there may be some A+ set up the next day. Yeah. And not to say you got to go balls to the wall, but it could be, just because you're in a drawdown doesn't mean, you should treat it like a B setup when it's A+, right? But that's different for every trader. But for me, I'm usually pretty able to get back and hit it hard if I see something I like, which typically works out to my benefit, but sometimes obviously does not work.
Yeah, and I think like that's I think that's one of the skills that really separates the good from the great, is that ability to forget about where they are within that equity curve and it's be like, actually, I'm just being presented with an A+ setup and I need to treat it as such, regardless whether you're at highs or lows or
Right. The
whatever.
market doesn't care about your equity curve. Right?
Yep. That's such a Joe, I haven't heard that before, but it's so true. And Eddie, would you have anything you'd add to that about setbacks and drawdowns?
Yeah, I mean, definitely had my fair share of the drawdowns. And they will have you like questioning everything at first. But I do think, I don't want to say every single one gets better in a sense, but like you do learn to deal with it over time. And I think probably like around, I think it was like year 5 where I was like, I don't want to say unfazed by it, but I was like, all right, I've gotten out of it every other time. I'm gonna get out of it again. Um, but it definitely took a number of drawdowns until you're a little more confident in yourself. But I think what helped me was like zooming out on my equity curve. Like, you feel like, oh, this is horrible right now. Nothing's working. Blah blah blah. But then you zoom out, you're like, oh, I'm here. Like there's not. What am I worried about? And that goes for just on a day-to-day basis as well. Like one day doesn't matter, one week doesn't really matter, even 1 month. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really a big deal. So I think, keeping that in mind, and then, I mean, I think as you progress as a trader, right, you should get a wider playbook to the point where, maybe you're drawing down in one strategy, but another strategy is making up for it. So you almost like lessen the drawdowns over time. At least that's kind of what my goal is.
Makes sense.
But yeah, there's no way to avoid it. It's gonna happen, and it's also like, I mean, for some traders, like if you're more of a home run trader, which I'm not, I'm more like singles, doubles, occasional triple maybe. But if you're like a home run style trader, then like you're probably much more comfortable with the drawdown than the guy that's, he just wants to see a steady curve.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like one thing that I think wasn't explained, talking about like the difference between expectations and reality. Like I personally still find myself frustrated on occasions with trading when, like you said, you could be in a bit of a drawdown or you had a tough day or perhaps something's just been frustrating. I mean, are you still going through that curve, or are you able to be quite settled and neutral at the end of each day, whether it's green or red?
You mean while they're like in the drawdown?
Like, well, to be honest, I just mean generally, like do you feel the same after a red day as a green day, for example?
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah,
great
we're all
question.
dead inside.
This was really bad. Like and there's so many traders that do this, and I get so mad now that they'll like let their trading day dictate their mood for the day or the week or whatever. It's like, dude, you got to leave it all behind. Once you leave the screens, every day is the same. And I mean, it's very tough to do. Like at first out, if I had a red day, I'd feel, you feel bad about yourself for the day or whatever. And it's like, there's always something that you could have done better, and this and that. But I mean, that's probably one of the hardest things with this job is not letting it tie into your mood. But again, it's like I feel like over time you can get better at that as well, to where later in your career you're just completely unfazed, no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I frustrated today. We're recording this on the 25th. Like we had TNON, and we had some really nice moves today, but some of them were like just a bit frustrating.
Wow.
And I'm just like, yeah. I do take like a few minutes to decompress, but then I'm able to like completely shake it. And like Lan said something to me that was really profound. He said like, there's a good chance like the average trader, like we have a lot of red dates. And it's going to be a really, really miserable career if we're pissed off 40% of the time. Like we're going to be depressed within any time. So there has to be some way to shake it off. That's for sure. I'll throw it over to you, Nick, and your setbacks. I know you touched on at the start that you had to refund an account, just refreshingly honest, and not something you particularly hear a lot of people talk about, but perhaps chat through that process. I mean, you've gone from it sounds like you've gone from like absolute lows to wiring out every single day and your absolute like all-time highs.
Yeah, that's again, like any trader will tell you, you're going to experience drawdowns. Some of the best traders I know have a 40 to 45% win rate. So, they're losing more than they're winning, but their gains are just crushing their losses. And that's super important, because I think a lot of novice traders will flaunt their 75, 80, 85% win rates, but they're losing more on their losses than they're making per trade on their wins. I've been through some drawdowns in my career. It's ultimately made me a better trader because I learned what to trade and what to avoid. And mainly my drawdowns came from Chinese stocks and shorting them, right? So like I knew, after the second time, I didn't learn my lesson the first time, but the second time I'm like, you know what? I'm done. Like there's simply no reason to have this level of stress when I'm trading. Trading should be even keeled. Like it's like you guys are saying, like when you have a really good day, great. When you have a really bad day, it's part of the process. Like you're not gonna have a great day every day. But, experiencing drawdowns like that where, your entire account can be gone in a matter of minutes, sometimes seconds. I'm like, it's debilitating and you lose confidence, right? So like I think my advice to people that, my general advice to people when they're going through serious drawdowns is don't stop trading. I know that that's like, a lot of people say, take a step back, go on vacation. For me, I'm not that kind of person. Not to say that jump right back in and start revenge trading the same ticker, but continue trading because you obviously know how to trade. You're just taking some wrong trades, but build your confidence back up by, sizing down. So I typically recommend like sizing down by 10x. And I know that that's enormous and crazy and you feel like what are you even doing? But you're continuing to trade. You're continuing to be familiar with the market. So you're not taking that time off and then you come back and you're like, what's going on? What did I miss? But you're trading so small that like you can build that confidence back up by just not losing so big anymore and just by building a series of wins. And I think that's good advice for a lot of people, Obviously it doesn't work every time because people will break their rules and size up or this or that, but yeah, I always recommend just sizing down. Like you obviously know how to trade. Now it's really just about honing in on what you're good at and just completely getting rid of where you failed in the past. And you have to recognize that. And I think the best way to recognize that is through backtesting and, taking notes and journaling. And then you can really see like it's right in front of you and it's clear.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, I just think it's spot on there. And I think that's just something that it is just part of the process, really, isn't it? And something that, again, like, we've spoken, all four of us have spoken a lot about experiences, and like, as much as like we're trying to impart some of the experiences on obviously the viewers and you guys, like it's it is just something that you got to go through.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned. I feel like we might have been a little bit negative. I mean, and like there are tons of positive. There are tons of positive as well. I mean, we have to wrap it up in a bit, but I think like to finish, a couple of things I want to finish on. But I think first, just to be real positive, like how fulfilling has like the journey been for you, Brice? Like
LGMK 3000% burst.
ooh, that you, Nick.
Sorry.
That's cool. Like how like your 2011 you started, obviously, 14 years later, you're still here, you're still smiling sometimes. Like how fulfilling has that journey been, and how was it worth it?
I mean, definitely worth it. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be ups and downs. right? But if you, I think to be, really good in this game, you got to truly love it and basically be obsessed. And I think, what keeps people coming back is just the ultimate challenge, to kind of figure it out and kind of, to continue to pull money out of the markets, month after month, year after year. So I think that itself is kind of fulfilling, and it kind of revolves on just kind of continuing to get better and better. So it's a constant like process of improvement and just figuring out this huge puzzle. So yeah, I mean, not to say everything's rainbows, sunshine every single day. There's obviously going to be tough moments, and that's where what keeps a lot of people out of it, and that's also why kind of a reason why you can make basically unlimited at certain levels. But yeah, I would say definitely fulfilling. I don't think I'll ever stop trading. Just a true love for the game, and basically an obsession. I probably have, maybe different styles and stuff, maybe not as active every single day, down the road, but I don't see myself ever stopping trading just because I love it. So I don't know honestly what else I would do, to be honest. Like if I said I retire, like what am I gonna do every day? Right? It's kind of the challenge that keeps me coming back, and obviously the ability to make money, and so yeah, overall I'd say very fulfilling.
Yeah, I the thing is, I know the answer to that now, and like it's just another obsession with golf for me. Basically, that's what I would do if I could retire today. I'd be playing an awful lot, which I suck at golf, so that's not going to happen anytime soon. I'm for sure. Eddie, what about you? Has it been fulfilling? Has it been worth it?
Oh yeah, definitely worth it. Fulfilling, I don't think that's the right word. I mean, I think that's kind of the hard part about this game is that maybe you never feel fulfilled, right? And you're always kind of chasing the next level, which is something that I've struggled with in terms of, it's like what is the ultimate goal, right? And I think for me, I kind of remind myself, at the end of the day, we're all our own boss. We're literally clicking buttons. Like, what more can we ask for? I mean, I think we don't really have much to complain about, and like just try to enjoy the freedom of it all, because that's why I started. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of like what Brice said. I don't really know. I don't know what else I'd be doing. I don't know how to do anything else. So I'm gonna keep doing it until I don't want to anymore. But yeah, maybe one day I'll be fulfilled. I don't know. We'll have to find out.
It's funny that, like, yeah, you're right. Maybe like feeling is perhaps the incorrect term, but one thing I would say, like, personally, is like there are some wins along the way that I always feel like a real pinch me and surreal moments. And like one of them has just been something, I mean, it's not simple, but like going to Traders for a Cause, for example, in Vegas, like it's weird because like coming from like a corporate background, I used to go to conferences every year and I thought they were shit. I absolutely hated them. It was like corporate force fun, and it was just like 2 or 3 days of like, just it was just miserable. I don't want to say too much. There might be some former colleagues watching, so I can't be that. They were lovely though. No, they won't be fun. But like for me, it was like a real like surreal moment of like going to an event and I wanted to. Like I traveled like halfway across the world for it. I was like, I actually want to be here. I want to be at this conference. And I also like, it's in terms of like, I was sat there watching like every presentation. I'm like, geez, this couldn't be. And it was just the odd moment like that where I'm like, I know I made like the right decision, and that's like the pinch me. That's the pinch me moments where I'm like, this is a lot of fun, and the whole journey and going through all that shit has been 100% worth it. Nick, what about you? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean,
You
listen,
fulfilled?
The journey's tough, but it's ultimately worth it. If you're successful, it's the best job in the world. And that's a tough place to get to. I agree. I don't know if fulfilling is the right word, but I love the psychological aspect of trading. I love the fact that in order to be a good trader, you need to master yourself. And I love the discipline aspect, the constant adaptation to your own emotions as well as the market's emotions. Um, and to me, it's a challenge, and I love the fact that it's not monotonous, not even in the slightest, and it's new every day. Every day is just an incredible opportunity. Um, and to me, that's everything, you know? Like, I can never really envision myself in a 9 to 5 job. I've done the corporate life. Wasn't for me, you know? So I agree. Like, if I wasn't trading, I have no fucking clue what I'd be doing. You know? But
I have no clue either.
but I've been lucky enough that, you know, I'm still in the game, and
Yeah.
this is, yeah, I mean, it's a passion, right? So it's like, I think that you'll find happiness and content if you do anything in life that you're passionate about, you know, and if you can somehow turn your work into something that you love, is it really work? You know, and then you're getting paid to do it sometimes, maybe 50% of the time. But
Yeah.
even still, like, it's just a constant battle and a constant challenge, and you're constantly learning about yourself, and that's what I love about it the most.
Yeah, and I'm excited like nearly like every evening. I never think, oh shit, I've got to trade tomorrow. Like I've just never thought that. I'm like, it's like, oh, I get the opportunity to get the opportunity to do that. I get to what?
Yeah.
You know, I find it like it's still, even like all these years later, I still find it like quite, you know, surreal, especially when you see obviously a lot of people, you know, going to work, they drive an hour or whatever. I'm like, yeah,
Sitting in traffic.
but yeah, it's the traffic. I'm like, don't do any of that. Well, I think that was positive. That was very positive. So that's probably not a bad spot to wrap it up. But I just want to go through one quick, well, just quick fire, one piece of advice each of you wish you'd known earlier. Brice, you've kicked things off. Well, you've had the privilege and pressure of kicking most things off this evening. So one piece of advice you wish you'd known earlier.
I would say focus on a good process, and not so focused on like getting green trades. I guess like early in my career, I would definitely fight trades, fight stocks just to get green on them. But overall, a lot of it work was a bad process. And ultimately, you know, a month or 2 months later, one would come around and it would take everything I got from those others earlier in my career. So, yeah, I think the best thing would be focus on process that's repeatable and scalable.
Yeah, well said. Eddie?
For me, I'd say hide your P&L. Because for me, I thought it was like the dumbest thing for a while. I was like, oh, how can anyone do that? I can't do it. I have to look. And it took me a while to actually do it. And then once I did, I was like, man, this is like a cheat code, you know, because I mean, you can size up way quicker, and I mean, you're not like, if you're just looking at the numbers all day, you're gonna be emotional, or at least way more emotional than if you weren't. And I know you can kind of calculate the P&L in your head anyways, but it's still not the same. I just think it's way more, you know, encourage just focusing on the trade and the market in front of you versus, you know, trading your P&L and, you know, having it be all about the money versus, you know, just focusing on the trade and the process. So yeah, that'd be the main piece of advice. I don't know.
I need to do that then. I don't do it.
Oh, you don't do it right now?
I don't do it right now, but it's funny. Like, it's funny
Oh.
you do that. So like, I don't do it now, but I have taken dollars off my screen, so I only have R now on my. But I mean, it's easy to work out than your R. But
Yeah.
it's funny you say that because like I'm not to like. I know I bore people when I talk about golf, but like that's a good example of that's something I do when I play golf. I don't care about my overall score. I just focus on the next shot right, and I always think like. You're right. There are times where I'm thinking, oh, if this flushes another 30 cents, it's going to be this big. And then perhaps I'm ignoring some of that price action in the moment. So,
Yeah, I think the main thing that helped me was when if I was up a ton in a name and then it came all the way back and I saw on the screen, I would see the P&L like, oh man, I was up that amount and now I'm red or now I'm flat. But if I have the P&L hidden, I don't even care because I'm like I didn't see it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I think a great example of that, and I was going to talk about this as well, but you covered it. But I think a great example is, they interview an athlete after they just had like a record-breaking game. Almost 100% of the time, they had no idea that they just broke any records. They have no idea how many points they just had, whatever it is. And they're just locked into the game. And you can look at your results afterward.
Yeah. Get in that flow state.
Exactly.
That's when good things tend to happen. That's a great spot to wrap it up. I just want to thank you, Brice, thank you, Eddie, thank you so much for your time tonight. Hopefully, I think we covered like such a broad spectrum tonight, and like the whole idea is 100% to be encouraging, but we just wanted to revisit this process, and hopefully, if we have a schedule off, then I think you're going to go on and do pretty well. So thank you so much, you three. Thank you for watching. See you later, guys.
Thanks for having us, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Appreciate it. See you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to this latest episode of Trading Takes. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please check out some of our others with some great traders. Thank you for watching.